Thanks for listening to KRUI 89.7.
The most powerful way to prepare for a meeting is to enter it with no agenda other than to be a space of endless compassion. You're listening to KRUI in Iowa City. It's 89.7 FM on your radio, KRUI.FM streaming online. My name is Justin Comer. I'm the host for the next hour. The show is called iHearIC Radio. It's about local music and local art and local musicians and local artists, and you can fill in the rest. Today I have a very special guest, and I'm going to read a quick bio about this special guest before I bring his mic up. Jacob Harrison Jones earned their BFA in studio art with an emphasis in new media from the University of Central Oklahoma. They are currently receiving their MFA in intermedia at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. Jones was a resident of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma for over 20 years before moving to Iowa and has been playing in bands as a drummer or guitar player for 10 years. They are currently working in a variety of time-based practices, including animation, video, film, performance, sound/noise, and radio. Please welcome to iHearIC Radio for the first time, Jacob Jones.
Howdy do.
Here we
I'm
go.
so excited to be here.
All right.
My headphones was turned down.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you so much for reading that. That's all mostly true. I'm actually celebrating my 10-year drumming anniversary on the 19th.
Of July?
Of this month.
So that's 5 days from now.
Yeah.
I have the date right there.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you for joining me in the studio today. That is the most professional introduction I think I've ever done for a guest on this show. So
thank you so
you're
much.
Welcome for
I
that.
Hardly deserve it. So thank you.
So Jake, I know you as a radio person.
Yeah.
You are the production director here, right?
Yeah, I've been production director at KRUI since last October. Mm-hmm. So I'm coming up on a year. They rehired me for some reason. Yeah. So I like the title of radio person because a lot of my research interests lately are in radio art and how visual artists have used radio and how radio can be a sculptural media. You know, yeah.
What do you mean by sculptural?
I mean, radio takes up space and radio travels through electromagnetic waves through the air.
Yeah.
And you can physically interact with these phenomena
with the waves.
Yeah. You know, if, for example, if I had brought my little FM radio and tuned it to dead air, I could move around and the dead air will sound different if I move it near a computer, if I move it near my phone or near lights or.
Yeah, that's a good point. It behaves differently depending on where you are in space. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so, bodies are so central to radio and the connectiveness of radio.
Human bodies?
Yeah, human body. I mean, because we're projecting this out there, and there's an interesting relationship with trust that's different from performing live in front of an audience, because the trust between the radio host and the audience is they're trusting us that this is actually happening in a space live right now. Mm-hmm. And we have to trust that there are people actually listening.
Sure.
Because we don't have the satisfaction.
We can't see anybody listening right now.
No.
They can't see us. They don't know that we didn't just record this ahead of time and hit play and then leave the room.
And only sometimes they call and complain, like during my shows.
Really? You get complaints? I was going to ask you about your the Test of Lime show.
Yeah. So, when I discovered there was a college radio station, I wanted to infect it with my body and have my own. I had illusions of the kind of show that I would want to have, which is a show inspired partially by my background as a performer, but really informed by DJs from the radio station WFMU. Mm-hmm. I'm wearing one of their T-shirts right now.
Very nice. And where is WFMU located?
It's Jersey City.
Right.
It's not debatable. That's the number one freeform station in the nation.
Right.
It's awesome. But, they have DJs who do really experimental things. Like one DJ one of the rare DJs that got fired was kicked off the air because he would just play other radio stations during his hour, which is super illegal.
Yeah,
you can't do that. So I wanted to get in trouble, and I wanted to get on the air and do wacky things and do performance art, and also inspired by Hardy White, who's the description of his show is Southern inspirational Dada.
Nice.
And it's very stream of consciousness talking and character acting. And
what was the name again?
Miracle Nutrition with Hardy White.
Hardy White.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I'm not familiar with that.
So, extending my art practice to the radio, and they let me do it.
Yeah, and I pride myself on my show being a space that's open to experimental stuff, but your show takes it to another level entirely. I happened to catch your show live, I think last Friday, the week before.
That was a
2
good
days
one.
ago, and I'd never caught it live before because I just never had been like near a radio at the time. And I think you were just talking like through an effects loop.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really fun because I was really thinking about my 10-year drumming anniversary, and, one of my many identities is the identity of a rock drummer. Mm-hmm. In the past month, I've just been really interested in reading about the history of jazz drumming, and not just I've practiced jazz, I've played in jazz bands, but actually, reading about drummers and looking them up. And so I had this great book. If I would have brought my laptop, I could have recommended it. But I basically just read several paragraphs about improvisational jazz drumming, through in a improvisational performance. I'm messing with these pedals, and
you were reading that live.
I'm reading about improvisation, and it's I don't know. Looking back, jazz is one of those things that to me feels so gate kept, because how do you write about improvisation, and how do you, drumming sheet music for jazz is always really funny, because you'll buy a book that is jazz drumming for the intermediate drummer, and most staffs are just empty. It just has hashtags or little,
little slash.
Yeah, it's play here. And it's
Yeah, I was writing a jazz, a big band chart in college, and I was I don't know how to write a drum set parts. What do I do? I was asking people. They're just sort of describe something and then just put lines on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left it almost completely blank. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where if you weren't fortunate to be in the jazz band of your high school and get funneled into it that way, it feels like it's something that's really hard to get into.
Yeah.
And even drumming in that context is also a really hard thing to get to, because everyone wants to play drums, or saxophone.
Yeah.
Those are the two cool ones, as far as I know. Now that I'm an adult, I know that, the French horn's the cool one, or the bassoon. The bassoon, the bassoon's really cool. Yeah. Drumming's still, one of my favorite things. But
how long have you been a drummer? It says in your bio, it says you've been playing in bands for 10 years. As a drummer
so
or guitarist.
That's absolutely true. So I think I'll be really honest. Most of my decisions have been made based on what I thought would be cool or make me cool. And when I was 14 and really into Guitar Hero, it was I have to be in a band.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
have friends, we have to be in a band. And of my friends, 2 of them already owned a guitar. 1 of them already owned a bass. And so it was I drew straws to see between me and a friend if one of us would drum and one of us would do vocals, and I got drums. So that's why I'm a drummer. And we immediately started playing the worst White Stripes and Ramones covers.
Yep, that's how you start.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was listening to Guns N' Roses
Yeah.
was the thing that made me be like, oh, I need to do this. My friend whose name was Jake, his parents got his brother a drum set and him a bass, and then my mom bought me a thrift store guitar, and so that's how we started.
Yeah.
And we started off playing Brain Stew by Green Day.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Yeah, no, awesome. I mean, I still have some of those recordings, and it's very validating to listen to you as a very green musician from the future when like you're, you know, for me right now, I'm really hard on myself. I'm like, my traditional grip, garbage. I can't, my buzz rolls sound sloppy. I'm hyper focusing on these little muscles in my hand. Like, how can I maximize this technique? And then it's like, I listen to that and I'm like, oof. Like, oh, wow. That, you know, I don't know.
I was practicing my baritone sax a lot this week because I had a gig last night, and I hadn't played it for like 2 months before that, and so I was watching myself in the mirror like playing scales, and I was also doing that. I was like, my finger is not moving like correctly. Yeah,
and that's a struggle that I have with guitar, definitely, because for two main reasons, I think. One, my hands shake. I have a neurological disorder, so like playing guitar or like working with electronics is really difficult because
you need some sort of precision with your hand movements. Yeah,
absolutely. And so good technique on like guitar is like absolutely imperative for me, because it's like I need every handicap that I can get to play. But the other thing is I only started learning how to play guitar because of my interest in math rock. So then it's you know, it's like the way I want to play is so high level.
Right. Yeah. Your interest is in like the most difficult stuff.
Yeah. Like, maps and atlases and Hella were like huge for me as a teenager. And so, I'm a decent two-handed tapper now, but still like playing live is a nightmare sometimes because my hands. Anyway.
And is this neurological disorder something that happened later in your life, or have you always had this problem?
Yeah. No. I have juvenile epilepsy. Yeah. So that's informed like a lot of my practice as a visual artist as well. Or maybe that's just my interpretation of it. I mean, it's really easy being in like a critical program where I'm like put in a position where I'm constantly being critical and self-critical.
Right. Self-analyzing constantly.
Yeah. To be like, oh, maybe I like creating things that are made up from a bunch of little things to make one cohesive whole. Maybe I like that because my hands shake and that's how I draw, because I can't draw long straight lines. I have to do a bunch of little straight, you know, I don't know.
And if you don't mind me asking, what's the differentiation between juvenile epilepsy and like standard epilepsy?
Yeah, well, so for me, like juvenile epilepsy, as far as I know, I mean, this was all explained to me when I was 8. Right. So, but it's triggered by the start of puberty. Changes in your brain that happen during that time cause seizures. So I'm not photosensitive at all.
Yeah.
But even so, I love strobes, not like at concerts, but like in my work, if I can, like, I love animation, which can have a very like flicker film effect. And that feels very personal to me.
Sure.
You know, it's like, oh, I like that this makes people uncomfortable, you know, if I'm the one doing it.
Sure.
It's the same way with drumming. If someone came into my apartment and started drumming, I'd lose my mind. But if I'm the one drumming, I love it. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, you have a sort of power there.
Yeah.
To cause discomfort in others.
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
So we didn't mention like when your show airs, if you want to let people
it's
know.
Fridays 8 to 9 p.m. Tune in. Sometimes you'll hear me eating popcorn. Definitely not allowed in the studio. We're not allowed to eat in here. But it sounds cool, so I'll do it.
Yeah.
one week I drummed on my belly for like a couple minutes. I'm trying to think. Yeah. I think one of the more generative things is the piece that you saw at that event at the school at Voxman.
Yeah, I met Jake when he played at a composer's workshop for the composition department over at Voxman, and you were with Kaylee, yes,
who's a local poet and translator, and that was such an honor. I was so excited to be a part of that. So
it was fun. Kaylee was reading some stuff, and you were doing experimental guitar music.
No input mixing.
Oh yeah, you didn't have a guitar.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
I was like, what should I use to do this? Because I build my own handmade electronic objects to make sounds like that, but conceptually I felt no input mixing worked, because with no input mixing it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm sure you're aware, but for people who aren't, you plug a mixer into itself and suddenly you can get a very wide range of tone and feedback that you can manipulate and you can mix, and
it's very unpredictable too.
Oh, absolutely. Which I really like.
Yeah. If you take like one of the outputs off the back of the mixer and just put it into an input with like a short cable, and then you're making a feedback loop, and it just does like a lot of crazy stuff. It
can be everything from like feedback, what you would imagine, to like a percussive tapping, almost like and you can change the speed of that at times where it can almost sound like a bumblebee or a helicopter or something, all the way to like the most cheesy sci-fi like synth sounds. Yeah, like it's really easy to sound cheesy with no input mixing, really, which I really like. Cheesy. Yeah. But the whole what attracts me to that is that it is a self-contained system, and you know, I'm in the university right now, so I'm a part of this very self-contained system. I feel like the building that I'm in is a no input mixing structure. Like there's a lot of chaos that happens in there that, you know, it's such a weird, the architecture of the building feels like when you're in there, it feels like it exists outside time and space, which I'm sure is a similar feeling in Voxman. It's like this huge building that, at least in the VAB, what a lot of my colleagues suggest is that it doesn't encourage community or interaction, which I don't know. I don't know if that's true because I say howdy do to everyone I see in there, but it is true that it's big and it's far out and it's easy to get lost if you're a stranger to the building and stuff. Yeah.
Well, hey, you mentioned building your own instruments.
Yeah.
And you have one here in the studio.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm going to play a PSA real quick.
Great.
And while I'm playing that, would you like to get ready to perform on your instrument? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, here we go. Here's a PSA.
Indoor baseball, anyone?
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
That was Jacob Jones performing on a self-built instrument. And it's currently about 3:30, so let me do a quick weather report, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. All right, it's currently sunny. It is 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like 97 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh boy. Got 0% chance of precipitation and 47% humidity. We've got 9-mile-per-hour winds coming from the south. All right.
Thank God we're here to tell people about the weather.
I know. It's a necessary service.
I love it.
If you'd like to verify my report, you may visit weather.com and search your zip code and test the numbers I gave you against the ones you see on your screen. So, Jake, the instrument that you just performed on, do you have a name for this?
Not yet. So I built this as part of my summer residency at Public Space One. Shout out to PS1. It's been a fantastic residency. Everyone's super nice. Kelmy and John are super accommodating. The space rules. I had only been there as a viewer of punk shows.
Yeah.
So it feels like a huge honor to get to be there as a artist in residence and get to share the kind of stuff I've been building. Now this, it doesn't have a name yet, but it hasn't been built all by me. This is, it started as a thrift store painting that I gave to my friend and colleague, Claire Whitehurst, who rules, and is one of my favorite painters I've ever met. And I love their work. And the idea that sort of created this, they were just, it was a no-brainer. If anyone, I was going to collaborate with anyone, it would be them. So it's a painting. I played a painting.
Yeah, that's right. Do you mind if I describe it a little bit?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a painting. How big would you say that is?
I don't know.
Maybe, 3 by 4, something like that.
Almost 2 drumsticks across.
Yeah. And like 1.5
drumstick tall.
That way, yeah. And you've got, we talked a little bit about this before we were on the air, but you took apart an old guitar that you had, an electric guitar. You've got one of the pickups on the left side, almost in the middle, like attached to the frame there. You've got a string going directly across the painting, horizontally. And then you have 2 above that attached to the bridge there, going kind of diagonally up towards the top right corner. And then you have the other pickup from the guitar attached to the bottom frame, kind of near the bottom left corner, in just like maybe 6 inches or so. And then you've got 2 more strings attached down there going across that pickup. And those 2 are going across the 3 strings I already mentioned that were going kind of horizontally. So you've got 2 strings crossing 3 strings there. Mm-hmm. And then the two strings that are attached vertically are also going to the same tuning peg. So they're kind of like a one chord there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and the painting of itself was really funny because I wanted this instrument to be a painting for a very specific reason. And so I went to a thrift store to find one of those paintings that looks like a painting. Mm-hmm. And this one was like one of those, and it's not an original because it's a print on wood. It's all wooden, I think.
Oh, okay. So this is like sort of fake. Okay. Yeah.
Well, the painting on top of it is real, but the original thing that I bought was like one of those like early 19th century paintings of the hunt.
Oh, okay. So you bought a painting and then it's been painted over
by Claire.
That's what's happening.
Yeah,
okay.
Who did an amazing. I love looking at it. I felt like the prettiest girl at the dance walking into PS1 with this after I had picked it up from Claire. I was like,
yeah, that's really nice.
As an artist who does not paint, mm-hmm. It felt so weird walking into a room of people painting and like. It's like, oh, I have my painting now. It's like I'm gonna drill a bunch of holes into it and use leftover scrapped wood as like second bridges because to make it work. So there's 2 bridges on the south side of the painting. One is an actual electric guitar bridge, and the other's just a block of wood.
Right.
I needed some more height. So obviously I like improvisation. That was all improvisation. No input mixing's improvisation. I did not write any of this down.
Yeah.
I was just sort of like, where do I want a tuning peg? Where do I want the pickup? And it's like, well, I'll drill this.
Oh yeah. So you didn't even really like plan out the construction ahead of time. It was mostly improvised as well.
Yeah.
While you were building.
Yeah. So the last instrument I built was more of like the cross of a zither and a slide guitar, in that there was no frets, and it's a string suspended with 2 bridges. It only had 2 bridges, maybe 3. I don't know. It depends on how much you want to expand your definition of a bridge, but I'm gonna say it's 2. And the middle bridge was controlled by an air actuator, so I could attach 2 wires to one another, like 2 loose wires. And this middle bridge would violently push in one direction. And when I moved them, it would violently push back.
Wow.
So with one hand, I would manipulate those wires, and the other, I would do some of the extended guitar technique that I just sort of showed you. Some of my tricks. I forgot to bring my own pencils, so I'm glad that there are pencils in the studio for me to use.
Yeah, fortunately, we have a coffee cup mug full of pencils on the desk here.
Yeah, and I thought that these brushes would be more generative, and they kind of were, but my fingers basically did the same thing.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure of how this object is going to exist in a gallery yet. I don't know if it will be an object used in a performance or a object that anyone can come over and touch. But I can tell you that it started off as a premise for a joke, like a lot of artworks that I work on, in that, I'm in an intermediate program. I graduated with a BFA in studio art, but with an emphasis in new media. So I took a ton of video art and experimental animation classes, and they were amazing. So my portfolio for the past maybe 5 years has been mostly in almost exclusively, besides a few drawing series, time-based media of performance, sound, video, film, and that kind of stuff. And so I was on the phone with my dad, who's amazing in so many ways and a huge supporter of me and a big inspiration and stuff. But I was telling him I got this residency at PS1. I was like all excited. I just heard about it. This was a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, cool. So like, are you gonna paint something?" He's like, "Are you gonna make? Are you still painting?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Dang!" I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that sort of thing. And so I was like, I guess I'll make a painting. That's like, I'll just like meet him halfway. But I refuse to paint. I'm not gonna paint, but.
Right.
I can have my friend paint. And now I have a collaborative piece with my friend whose body of work I really respect. And they get to be included in this sort of open house that will be on Saturday. I'm going to double check that.
Yeah. Let us know when it is so we can.
Yeah. I'm still here. I'm just going to look at my email.
So you mentioning your dad asking if you were going to do a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to school for music composition. And I have I've had kind of similar interactions with my dad where he's like, I mean, couldn't you just like write a pop song and like you could just make a bunch of money having done that?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm capable of writing a piece of music like that, but it's not just about it's not just about having written it. You have to like, I don't know, live in LA or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, well, and I mean, you read about some people, some like successful pop musician stories, and it's like, 50 years ago, it's like, no, you could just like do this.
Yeah.
Like you could just move to LA and like, do coke with the right guy, and suddenly you have, a whole career. So the event is from 6 to 8 p.m. On July 20th. The day after my birthday. I am a Cancer. I'm a very Cancer. It will be the day after the day that I got my drum set, my 10-year drumming anniversary.
Nice.
So,
nice. Yeah, are you big into astrology then?
No, not at all. I like to pretend that I have one opinion about astrology, and it's screw Libras. Like they can just go right to heck.
Yeah.
But I don't know any Libras. I don't know anything
Libras?
about I don't know anything about Libras.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
I just picked that one arbitrarily.
Yeah. I know that I'm a Virgo, but that's
really.
Yeah.
I almost said screw Virgos because I flip between the two, but I got a certain energy from you, and
you could tell. Yeah,
I got certain vibes, and I knew not to do that.
I can never remember even like who is who based on like when you're born. You know.
Oh, I have no idea.
I know Virgo is like September-ish because that's me.
Yeah,
and I think Sagittarius is December.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really.
I'd have to think.
Put any stock into that stuff, but some people like it a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like hearing about it and being a voyeur in conversations about it. Mm-hmm. But those conversations for me are very voyeuristic because it's like I know nothing about this.
Yeah, totally from
the
outside.
Yeah, it's like listening to my dad explain how cars work, and it's just like going right through my brain. This information does not stick to me.
Something about stars and space, but
yeah. But yeah, so 6 to 8 on Sunday at PS1. It's an open studio group show style. So
this is the 20th, right?
This is the 20th. Yeah. So that's this.
That's Saturday.
Saturday.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I was saying Sunday.
I think you did, but we got it.
Totally butchering this. I'm so sorry. It is Saturday. But I'm really excited. I already finished one object, and it's not here. It's a sound piece that doesn't make sound. It's a bass drum that I built into sort of a resonant chamber for capturing electromagnetic waves.
Okay.
It's a tinfoil hat. So fun little, the other joke of this residency, the two joke premises that I decided to pursue, one being this, do you make paintings sort of response of like, well, I'm going to make a painting into an instrument and then use it somehow, or encourage people to come and like, I don't know, being a self-described sound artist is really difficult. And I feel like I'm in, like, maybe this wouldn't be the case if I was at Bard or at the Arts Institute of Chicago or Alfred. But here and in Oklahoma, working with sound in not an extra musical context, I'm often put into this position of educator or experimental composer, which isn't always beneficial for the work.
Sure. Basically because you're the only one doing this kind of work, right? In the area.
I mean, I can't be. I don't want to say that.
I mean,
but
I just mean like among your colleagues,
among my
yeah.
close little village. Yeah. No, and like, so critiques often borrow the language of music to sort of talk about these things, which is not always super beneficial. But I mentioned being put in the role of educator, of like having to, I'll do an entire sound piece, and at no point someone will ask like about the sound. It will be a lot of like, or like how the sound was made, but a lot of, like what's and whys, and I don't know. Maybe not whys, but more hows. I don't know. It's just it's just an identity crisis that I've been in for the past couple years. But so in response, and I don't know if this is a good thing, but for example, this object in my mind before a few days ago, when I had the opportunity to do a group critique as part of the residency, which was super beneficial. Vero Rose Smith was a part of that and actually said a lot of things that were like super helpful for me in thinking about this.
She's generally pretty good at talking.
Yeah, excellent talker.
She's a good conversationalist.
A+ talker about artwork and music. But my initial idea was that this would be an educational object of like, you look at it and you're like, how does this work? But then you actually get to touch it.
Right.
And it makes a sound. And now you're put in the position where it's like, oh, now you're the sound artist or the experimental composer or whatever you want to call it.
Learning by doing.
Yeah, exactly. And so But I'm not sure if I want to do that or if instead I just want to play it myself and have it be a performance thing. But then at that point, it's like also educational. And why do I feel like I have to rail against having an educational component? I don't know. I'm still learning about this. These are just some of the ideas I've been thinking about the past couple weeks. But the other, I don't know how good broadcasting this would be to try to explain the other work. But if you can imagine a bass drum that's been rewrapped with collage, magazine collage.
Oh, I saw a photo of this on your Instagram.
And then the inside is completely covered in tinfoil. The drum head, the resonant head is the only head that's still there. So the side that you would hit with the kick pedal is not there. There's no rim there. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of like a drummer joke. Actually, no one brought this up yet, and so I'm going to bring it to but drummers put pillows in their bass drums. Yeah. And it's supposed to make it sound better. Yep. That's a whole other thing. That was just something I learned like the week I got a drum set, and just have always kept a pillow in my bass drum. Right. And I'm not sure if I always need a pillow in my bass drum, but that's just where it exists. But so there is a pillow in this bass drum, as well as a sleep mask that has lavender oil on it and a sleeping bag. So the implication is that someone is laying down in there, or you're being asked to lay down in there, or someone has laid down in there, their head inside this bass drum that, without the tinfoil, is a resonant chamber. It is a drum, but with the tinfoil is a resonant chamber for electromagnetic waves, radio waves, microwaves, etc., electronic waves that are invisible but all around us. And I found that out because I participated in this workshop that involved a lot of group meditation. And the whole time I was just thinking about my phone and and about how my life is oversaturated with technology, because it's how all my artwork goes through digital processes or electronic processes. And so I thought, man, during this meditation, I was like, I wish I could put on a tinfoil hat like covertly. So I could like not like constantly feel anxious, or like I said earlier, like every day is a crisis. Yeah. Like maybe if I wear this, like sleeping with my phone next to my head won't, because I listen to podcasts while I sleep. It's like maybe that will have less of an adverse effect on me. And there is no scientific evidence that any of these things affect us negatively. But if you're
electronic waves.
Yeah. But if you're conspiratorially, if you're, if you want to, think, for lack of a better word, because I'm not sure if this is a word, conspiratorially, you would say, well, that's because fascist media companies and large governments they need media, like television and radio.
Yeah. So there's no evidence that this is harmful because they need you to not think it's harmful.
Yeah. Well, and there have been studies, but they're all like kind of like, not very conclusive or helpful. Right. And there have been artists such as, like, there's a radio artist named Patrick Reddy from Canada who made a work called Radio Beans that dealt with this issue. That was, reading about that was very inspirational for this. But I thought it was funny that I was like, I was looking up like baseball caps that secretly have tinfoil in them so people won't know. But then I researched it and it was like, oh, actually this acts as a resonant chamber, because in order to prevent those waves from going through your body, you would need to cover your whole body in this material. Otherwise, it's just going to seep in through my face or my body, and then it will echo.
You've got to be just completely encased in it to not let anything in. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just going to bounce back and forth once it gets into your head.
So it won't amplify, but it will stay longer. And reading that it would be a delay was like, oh, I want to make this resonant chamber, and I want to think about that delay and like, what does it mean? I don't know if the work is highlighting me sleeping next to my phone, you know what I mean? Or like the role meditation plays in like our digital present of being overly saturated with mass media and, again, our phones, our smart technology. I don't know where it exists in that conversation yet. So if you have a better idea than I do, come check it out on Saturday. I had an undergraduate professor tell me that making artwork and talking and writing and critiquing artwork are two very separate things that you can't be expected to do at the same time.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's some truth in that for
Definitely.
sure. And I know I have colleagues who are like, I don't know what my painting means until 6 months after I've painted it, which is like not very productive. If you're in a 3-year graduate program, it's like you actually need to, I don't know. And that speaks more of like pressure and stuff. But speaking of delay, there is an element of this painting instrument hybrid that I wanted to bring up, in that the only processing that the sound is going through is a delay pedal.
Right.
And I use a very specific delay pedal right now. In the future, it will be a different circuit. In the far future, it will be a handmade design, like personally designed circuit. If you buy electronics, then shipping takes forever, like weeks.
And what pedal are you using today?
I'm using a Line 6 DL4, which is like the signature Sound Artist delay pedal / looper.
Okay.
I'm like blanking on a lot of names right now. I want to like name drop this certain guitarist who has 3 of these on his board.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he's like a math rock guitarist and like...
I can tell you, the listeners at home, that this delay pedal has a tweak and I believe a tweeze knob.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's what it's known for. And it has like 12 to 15 different delays as well as a looper, and tweak and tweeze do different things for every setting. So it's a very sophisticated pedal and has totally redeemed my perception of Line 6 as a company.
Yeah, everyone hates their amps specifically.
Yeah, no, it's a joke amp company. It's one of those things that you make fun of. But then, of course, it's like, I joke about that as a teenager, but it's like if you would have handed me like the $1,000 Line 6 amp as a teenager, I'd be like, oh, this is pretty great. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. But the entry level $200 Spider amps are like...
Yeah, the Line 6 Spiders, those are famous.
Yeah, and they're super funny because it's like, instead of saying like metal distortion, it says like Metallica. Like, so that's the other thing. It's like Slayer. Like, those are the presets in it. But this idea of, I've had conversations with painters who've described painting as an illusion of space, and that's there's a lot of written about that, and the formal qualities of painting and what is a painting. Well, a painting can be a lie because that space isn't sculptural, it's not real, but there's this false dimensionality.
Sure.
It's the same thing as a delay pedal or as an echo or a reverb. It is a artificial space. It's just an artificial electronic space, emblematic of an acoustic environment that doesn't exist.
Right,
so
reverb is like pretending you're in a bigger room.
Yeah, exactly. So delay is cheaper, so I wanted to do delay. And also, when I think of delay, I think of 2 people on different parts of a canyon yelling at each other. And so... it's important to me that delay has a place in this instrument. In the live performance of me hitting it just now, I don't think that's how it'll exist as a final perfected object. As a final perfected object, you wouldn't see any of the electronic parts. It would all be hidden behind the painting.
So you'd just see the strings.
The pickups.
Yeah.
So you would see enough to where you would know what it is. I was watching Paranormal Activity the other night, and there's this great scene in the beginning where like the husband is like playing guitar on the couch, and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, babe?" And he like moves his guitar, and it's like it's like so obviously a prop guitar. It's hilarious because it's like it looks like a Stratocaster, but it has no pickups or like knobs or anything. It's just like strings and tuning pegs, which is like honestly the only difference between that and my guitar that I have here that's a painting is that I actually bothered to put pickups in it.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I need to play a Grant spot real quick.
Yeah.
And then we will wrap up the show. Okay?
I hope it's not one I made.
The Broken Spoke one is you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can play that or the Angler one.
Do the Broken Spoke. Michael rules.
Okay.
Shout out to Michael.
Yeah, and here's Jake's voice again.
Support for KRUI is brought to you in part by The Broken Spoke. The Broken Spoke offers new, used, and custom-built bicycles, cycling accessories, and services all kinds of bicycles. They can be found at 757 South Gilbert Street and online at thebrokenspoke.com. For more information, call 319-338-8900 or email at krui@thebrokenspoke.com.
Welcome back to iHearIC Radio. I'm here with Jake Jones, whose voice you just heard talking to you about the Broken Spoke. Before I get into the last little, plug section of the show, I was going to ask you a question, Jake.
Yeah.
So you use the name Jake Jacobs sometimes. Where does that come from?
Oh, great. I'm so glad you asked. So, this is really weird. When I first moved here, I got this job, and it was amazing and generative, and my supervisor for that position is amazing. And when they were introducing me to everyone for the first week, they introduced me to people as Jake Jacobs. And I'm too much of a coward to correct them.
Yeah.
Because I was new, and also I have a lot of respect for this person. It was I didn't want to be actually my name's Jake Jones, it's not Jake Jacobs, because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also I just thought it was funny because that's the most ridiculous
That's a very funny name.
Yeah, Justin Justin's.
Yeah,
that's not a name. So so one, I had a conspiracy theory that so my identity, let's be honest, I haven't faced a lot of adversity in my life.
Sure.
Certainly I have experienced it, but on face value, I've got it pretty set.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this theory that this was a way that my boss was it was a power move.
Sure.
It was I don't know your name. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's I guess it's this. Your name's this now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, it's one of those things where it's there's facts and there's truth. I like to believe truthfully that happened factually. It's probably just a weird foible.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I thought it was so funny. And then it's they called me that for months, and in emails would call me by my actual name, but then in person. And so I just thought it was so funny. Yeah. But now there are people colleagues and friends of mine who think that's my actual last name, which again, I think that's Jake Jacob. That's the same name twice.
Yeah. Did you think about that after you said it and question that at all?
Which is yeah.
Well,
Thanks for asking.
We are in the last few minutes of my hour now.
Yeah.
You have a gallery thing happening this coming Saturday.
Saturday, 6 to 8 at PS1.
Mm-hmm.
Group show. All the PS1 summer residents will be having an open studio, and you can come and talk to everyone about what they've been working on. And awesome. It's going to be really fun on a bun.
Do you have anything else coming up you want people to know about, or anything online you want them to hear?
I've been really busy. There's been a lot of stuff, but one, I play drums in a no-wave band called Commodity A. Thanks for playing us last week.
Yes, I closed last week's show with a Commodity A track and forgot to bring it up at all during this show. So
no, it's okay.
We can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, we're
maybe.
It was one of those bands where it was I demanded that if I was going to play in a band when we were starting, that it had to be a conceptual band. It had to it couldn't just be a band. It had to we had to be characters. There had to be a reason we were writing songs. Also, you can find my songwriting on Bandcamp under marishkaharkatemusic.bandcamp.com, which is incredibly ungoogleable. But Mariska Hargitay plays the beautiful Detective Olivia Benson in Law & Order SVU.
Okay.
So if you go to Bandcamp and search Mariska Hargitay, Iowa City, Iowa or Oklahoma, you'll find me. I've been working on a concept 7-song, I'm going to call it an EP because I recorded it in my apartment. But I don't think a 7-song anything would count as an EP, but maybe it would if each song is between 30 to 50 seconds long.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've joined a lot of bands this summer, but none of that is official yet.
Cool.
So
Well, I can tell the world that your website is jacobharrisonjones.com.
Yes.
You can find links to all that stuff on that page.
I have a link to every band I've ever recorded in.
Yeah, it's a nice long list that I saw.
Do you like the descriptions? It's just like under punk, screamo, math rock. Like it's
One of them was like the first punk band.
Yeah, the first band I was in. Yeah, it was bass and drums and a singer. And the bass, we just wanted to be like Death from Above, 1979, which is bass and drums. Yeah, no, they were. I thought they were so cool in middle school. And then the bass player played out of 2 Sonic cabs, and he used a Mark bass head. So we were really loud.
That's pretty cool.
We were not one of those bass and drum bands that were like, if I could give any advice to teenagers trying to start bands with rich kids, because they have Mark bass amps and like Music Man bongo basses, and we'll get like Mesa boogie rectifier heads for like for Christmas. So befriend them. Also, hot take: Rickenbacker basses sound dumb.
I don't know.
Find my email me about it. I'll debate you all day about Rickenbacker. Their basses sound bad.
That's right. All right, if you were looking for stuff to do this week, I have a couple of shows to plug. Feed Me Weird Things is having their 26th concert this Thursday, I think. It's the 18th at 9 p.m. at Trumpet Blossom. Hide with White Bats. And on the 19th at 9 p.m., there's a Trans Lifeline benefit, also at Trumpet Blossom. This features performances by Kane, Jonathan Foster, Wayne Gibbous, and Nalani Proctor. The iHearIC concert series is currently on its summer break, but I am currently booking venues for that, so we'll get started up in late August, and I'll have more information soon. I'll be back here in the studio next Sunday, the 21st at 3 p.m. with Emily Wheeler as the guest. And I'm also going to record a podcast with Christine Burke that will go up on the iHearIC Patreon sometime this week. I run sound for the Cedar Rapids Municipal Band. If you want to hear a concert band playing outside, it's pretty fun. I'm running sound. We'll be at Knowledge Park tonight and Cleveland Elementary Wednesday in Cedar Rapids. The best place on earth to be. And I also just set up a Google form for anybody that wants to play at an iHearIC show or maybe even come on the radio show. There's a link to it on our website, which is iHearIC.com. There are also links to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, Bandcamp, iTunes, Google Play, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Spotify pages on that website. And if you would like to get in touch with me for any reason, the best way to do so is by email. That's iHearIC@gmail.com. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you again to Jake for joining me in the studio. I think we had a great conversation, and we got a great performance out of it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. We'll do it again sometime. Now I'm going to close out with some new music. I found this on Bandcamp. The artist is Mikey, and the Bandcamp page is manmikey.bandcamp.com. This is from a 3-track album of some sort called 224 South Lynn, and the track is called Burlington and Gilbert. All right, see you next week. Goodbye.
Hi, this is Chris from Pansy Division.
And this is John from Pansy Division, and you're listening to KRUI 89.7, The Sound Alternative, Iowa City.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
You're listening to KRUI 89.7 FM, Iowa City.